Today we're diving into how much admirals make, the perks they enjoy, and why the taxpayers might want a refund. What is an admiral? What's their ranking system? Well, you have four. You got rear admiral lower half, rear admiral upper half, vice admiral, and then admiral. Now, rear admiral upper and lower half, there's some connotations there, and it doesn't help the whole joke that 100 individuals go to sea, 50 couples come back. Now, there's only a few hundred of them in the entire Navy, which some might argue is more than the amount of ships that we have in a fleet. You might picture a captain of a ship, but they're higher than that. They get chauffeured everywhere. Now, admirals make around $200,000 a year, plus the perks, housing, and the retirement, which I get. You got to give people motivation to achieve that high of a rank because it takes forever to get it. But you would think with all of that pay, they'd be able to get their own house out on the town, or maybe hire their own chef, or their own chauffeur, or their own team of secretaries that are trying to brown nose their way to the top. But no, that's all taxpayer money. Now, I really pity the officers that have to do that tour duty, because I think most officers have to do at least one of those. So basically, you spend about 4 years of your career just absolute fellatio of a higher ranking officer, hoping that you might get a promotion. But some of those officers never know when to stop. Now, when you get to the top, admiral status, not only do you get all those perks, but you get your own ship. I was stationed in Italy for a couple years, and I did some work on one of those ships. And its whole purpose is to do whatever the admiral wants. Now, I can understand if it's coming from a perspective of he needs to get to where he's going during battle movements and all that stuff. That's great. But he's also allowed to take it on a pleasure cruise. I want to hop to this island this weekend. Everybody gear up. Your average sailor at the bottom, he could have plans this weekend with his family, but if the admiral had a wild hair, maybe let's go to Ireland this weekend. So if you're stationed overseas and you end up on an admiral ship, you might want to be prepared to stay there depending on the personality of that admiral. Obviously, there's good and bad for people stationed on ships like that, They get to see a lot more cool ports. Some of the regular crew on other ships, especially carriers and things that massive, can't port in a lot of places, so they're kind of floating off the coast just ho-humming around because a lot of ports just cannot handle that amount of people just flooding their town. But an admiral ship has a small crew, so you pretty much go to all these cool places where everyone wants to go, so that's always good. And of course, the downside is you have to be ready at all times to just pick up and go. I remember I had a mission I had to go on, but they, instead of giving me orders to have priority, because at that time I was a photographer and we had to go on mission for whatever Obama was sending us to. I went to Sigonella and they put me in a hotel. It was a pretty sweet hotel. And I had to go to the flight line. Well, for that entire week, every day I had to go to the flight line and wait for the lieutenant pilot to come out and give me some harebrained excuse. One day, the admiral decided he needed a place to put his feet. Another day, the admiral decided he needed extra space to put his bag, which I had no complaints. I was making $500 extra a day just in per diem. So basically, I had to stand with all my camera gear on a flight line for like 2 or 3 hours, get rejected, go back to my hotel, which had a swim-up bar, do some laps, drink some cocktails, go out to eat. And then after a week of that, my command decided to pull me back to headquarters, and I thanked them for the best paid vacation I've ever had in my life. I remember at one of my duty stations that there was an admiral who had a villa out in town. It was an absolutely gorgeous place. It overlooked the bay, the ocean. Prettiest thing, something out of a magazine. Well, there was a major leak, and they had to get crew in there to kind of assess the situation, and it was going to take several months to fix the leak and all the damage caused by that leak. And instead of taking temporary quarters somewhere else, he decided he wanted to bully the captain of the base out of his home, which is absolutely insane because the captain's house is the captain's house. He's in charge of the base. That's his home. But no. The admiral tried to get him to bend over, and they had to push all the way up to D.C. to get him to back down. And see, it's those kinds of personality quirks that just really can drive a man nuts being around an admiral. Everybody's high strung. He comes in like, why is everybody not relaxed? And then flips the switch and like chews everybody out. And it's just walking on eggshells. I mean, picture a spoiled version of Joe Pesci. And there was one rear admiral who came in. I was supposed to mic him up for camera. And I specifically said, hey, you know, this microphone is just for the camera so we can broadcast this later. You'll still need to use the handheld mic. And absentmindedly, he's like, yeah. Get away, servant. Fuck off. And sure enough, he goes out there and just starts talking. Everyone's like, we can't hear you. He's like, oh, these idiots mic'd up with a fucked up mic. And I'm sitting over there in the back. I was like, man, fuck that piece of shit. These admirals got all their staff trained like monkeys. I mean, they don't even have to, they just walk into a room. Coffee's ready, breakfast, whatever their personal quirks are. And then they have their own private chef, which is usually an enlisted or senior enlisted CS, which is a cook or a culinary, which is usually a culinary specialist. Their whole job is to cook for that admiral. So, peacetime admiral sounds like a pretty sweet gig. Especially if you're a sociopath. I mean, there is no downside of being an admiral at that point. But they also have a hand in all this ridiculous like uniform changes you've seen over the years. We really got to pay a guy 6 figures to be like, no, those khakis don't quite fall just right. We need to tighten them up in the crotchal region and then loosen them up at the ankles. Hell, if I made admiral, I'd just retire after 1 year of service and just coast on the pension for the rest of my life. Overall, it's like paying your HOA the same salary you would pay an NBA player. That doesn't mean I haven't met a good admiral here and there. There are a couple of good ones out there, and I hope that more come into play. It's just with the past 50 years of rewarding the brown nosers and punishing the hard workers, you kind of get a certain type of leadership over time. And it'll also take that amount of time to get the good type of leadership again. Thank you for watching my rant on admirals. I hope you like and subscribe.